All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Sean Dotson here with the flip side. It is Saturday, July 21st, 2018. And again, I kind of promised people on the forums that I would be doing a synopsis video of the illustrations and the thrill of the chase discussion because we've had some pretty serious technical difficulties with the video when it went into post-production and went into YouTube. We lost the whole first half an hour of the video, and then the live chat wasn't available. Even my add-ons, which is TubeBuddy on there, was not showing me the analytics or anything with the program. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on with it. If I can get it back up and running, I'll get it posted. But I promised everybody, because everybody was asking me about the question and answer that Forrest provided. So I just wanted to do a really quick synopsis video and let everybody know, what was said and kind of, just give a brief description of what went down. Hey, Dale Richards, Journeyman, good to see you guys. Again, I'm down here at Three Rivers Brewery. I'm having a Hoff this afternoon. And today they're actually doing a car show called the Rod Run here in Farmington, New Mexico. So they've got the entire Main Street blocked off and got a couple hundred cars down here, classic cars and stuff. So if you're from the area, you know this, you know what the Rod Run's all about. So it's a pretty big deal here in our little town. So I took the kids out this morning and took them through the car show and stuff. So it was a lot of fun with them. So, hey, Sledneck, how's it going? So real quick, yeah. So the whole video last night was about the illustrations found within the thrill of the chase. And David Decall and I were having conversations, amongst the three of us, outside of the channel and stuff, about the illustrations. And there was some things that we found that quite interesting. So we posed a question to Forrest, and if you go down in the description below, it should have that our full question and then Forrest Finn's answer. So if you just want to go down there and read that, you should be able to see it. But also, I'm just going to read to you, what the actual answer or the question and answer was really quick, so then we can talk about that. So the question that David Decall and I came up with when we posed to Forrest was your illustrator, Allan Polt, provided the stories found in the book from which he could then sketch illustrations based upon them? Or was he instructed by you to sketch that particular scenes, that which we now find in the book? And that was our question. And, I'd asked Forrest, if we have permission, if he does answer, if we could post publicly. And he did respond to us. And his response was, Sean, he read the story and I told him what to draw. We went back and forth some about the results. I don't think he had illustrated before. He is primarily a portrait painter, and a good one. The drawing of me behind the grave marker in the thrill of the chase looks like me, I think. I still have the original drawings for all my books and don't know what to do with them. You got any ideas? You may quote me. And then, of course, the little F on there. So that was pretty much his response. And, there was a lot of chatter about it last night. And again, I haven't been able to go back because I can't even see the chat that was in to see what everybody was saying about that response. But I thought it was pretty interesting that, he had said that, him and Allan kind of went back and forth on the drawing. So he really did kind of provide a lot of input to Allan on those drawings. And last night, obviously, we went through each and every one of the illustrations within the thrill of the chase. And that, I be honest with you, it took a lot of time. And I was very shocked at how much, we went into each and every one of those. Again, being a poem purist, I don't put a whole lot of emphasis on, trying to find subtle hints or looking for things within the illustrations. While I find it a very interesting discussion, it's not necessarily what I do. Again, this is my channel, but I openly, I invite other people on, like Jeremy and David and Decall and Sasha. So we all think a lot differently. So I don't just like to tailor the channel just to my personal thoughts. So I really wanted to open up and talk about those things. And it was a good discussion about it last night. But again, it was very long-winded. We went into a lot of detail on those things. But to me, the real synopsis that David Decall and I were really trying to get across, and Decall last night, had some family things that he had to attend to and had to leave the show a little earlier, so we didn't get a lot of his input on it. But the point that we were trying to get across, at least in my opinion and how I see it, is that each one of those illustrations found within the book, does tailor story. you know, each and every one of them has something that you could take out of the story and say, okay, well, that, you know, that image or that illustration does make sense because it does fit within the story. Now, when you come to the final chapter, which is, you know, the epilogue, if you want to call it a chapter, or the epilogue, the illustration within there of the woodcutter and the stumps and the moon with the bird in it doesn't seem to fit with that. You know, you read the story and you're like, okay, well, how does Allan or where does that come from? You know, and again, you have to think if Allan and Forrest were working together on that, that probably a lot of that direction may have came from Forrest as to come up with that drawing. At least that's our, you know, our assumption. You know, we didn't ask Forrest directly, you know, who was the, you know, the lead person to direct that illustration. But we can surmise that most of the other illustrations, even the ones that we admit that, you know, Allan had taken from, you know, Knockwell drawings, that, you know, there was some direction, not only from the story, but Forrest on what the drawings or the illustrations were supposed to be, with the exception of that last one. So that was really the kind of the highlight of it, is that, you know, that one just didn't make a whole lot of sense to us. And if anything, you know, for me, I look at that and I go, that is kind of a bit of an aberration, you know, if I was to find anything in there as far as the illustrations go. So that was the main point. And to me, the climax of getting to that whole discussion last night was really talking about what that meant. So it's unfortunate, again, like I say, I'm having a lot of difficulties with that video and why it got cut down. I don't know if it's something that YouTube, you know, limits on a live or something. I'm not sure. And I'm still looking into that, trying to figure it out, guys. I'm going to look over here at the chat room and say hi to a few people that are in here. Obviously, I said hi to Dale, Journeyman, Sledneck, H. Purd, how's it going? Mary Green, how are you? Edward Owen, how are you? Davio, good to see you in there. I know some of you guys were in the chat room last night talking it up. Again, it just went like over 2.5 hours in that and the whole thing last night. But so I think the big takeaway, you know, from Forrest's response was that, you know, both him and Allan worked together to create those images. And one thing I found that was very interesting, you know, in there, he says that he still has the original, you know, illustrations from the books, and, you know, he doesn't really know what to do with those, and kind of really, you know, asked me, you know, you got any ideas? And of course, there was a little bit of back and forth, you know, trying to clarify what he meant by that. And then I asked to him, is that something you want me to ask our audience, you know, what ideas they have that can be done with these illustrations? And last night I kind of mentioned that, you know, to K-Pro, that if she wanted to start a thread over on the Hint of Riches that was tailored to that specific question of, you know, what we as searchers would like to see done with those illustrations, or just give him some suggestions, I think that's a good idea. So I'll leave that up to K-Pro. If she really wants to start that, you know, she can, and I'll message her, you know, over there at the Hint of Riches to see if that's something she wants to do. If you're from a different forum and you don't necessarily post on the Hint of Riches, you might, you know, post it on your forum of choice, and see what comes of that, and just we'll let Forrest know somehow that you know, these are being posted on the different forums, and he can kind of see their responses. Or you can also put something here in the comment section below if you like. So really, I'm just saying, is there any questions you guys have? Or yeah, Davio, I've seen there was a lot of people last night that were saying they should auction them off or something. I don't know. You know, maybe that's one idea, obviously. Hey, Mitzi, how are you? What in the world? A daytime stream? Yeah. You're cooking and doing laundry and everything right now, right? So I did notice something I want to talk about that K-Pro just posted over on her site. She's got a new post over there on Hint of Riches called her Chat Monday. I guess they're setting up like a chat room or something to talk, which is just text-based only, I guess. But she said they're going to dedicate it to the flip side. Okay, that's cool. Thank you. We'll see how that goes. But she said there was something that she wanted to post last night in the chat, but she didn't get a chance. Something came up. Obviously, we were running way late last night, so I understand that. But I guess she was talking with Forrest by email or something, and this is what she posts. This is what she was going to post last night in the chat room. Here's what I was going to post. Talking about illustrations is fun, but for solving the poem, I think we, not all, but some, are missing something that is key, and we need to get back in the box. I asked Forrest, and he agrees. So it sounds like Forrest is saying, yeah, there's something we're missing and that we all should get back in the box. Again, it goes back to, that get back in the box post from 2016 where, I said, let's see if I can find it and pull it up here for you guys really quick. I'm sure you're familiar with it. Take me just a second. Mysterious writings. You get really fancy in your keyword search trying to find something by Forrest. I know we all like Terry Scamp, but when you're doing just a basic Google search, get back in the box. Let's see what it pulls up. There it is. So here was the question to Forrest. He said, Mr. Finn, I'm not even close to solving your riddle. I've tried for months and nothing works. I'm not asking for a clue to the treasure. I'm asking for a clue to the clues. Please help me, Mary. And I think that's very interesting. Something I had noticed about that Q&A from July 1st of 2016, so almost, to the date 2 years ago, is that it says, I'm asking for a clue to the clues. Give me a clue to the clues. I think that's kind of interesting. It's almost like a hint to the clues or something to help out. And here was Forrest Finn's response, and I know you're all pretty much familiar with it, but he says, Dear Ms. Mary, the solve is difficult for many searchers because their minds think the clues are tougher to decrypt than they really are. Some say they are trying to think outside the box, as if the solution lies somewhere out there. Until now, I have resisted telling them to get back in the box where their thoughts are comfortable and flow more easily. The blueprint is challenging, so the treasure may be located by the one who can best adjust. To illustrate my point, go to YouTube, Smarter Every Day. So again, that's, it sounds like in K-Pros, what she had talked with Forrest about is that she had said, we are missing something that is key and we need to get back in the box. And Forrest said he agrees, that we are missing something and we need to get back in the box. And there's been a lot of, back and forth conjecture on what that really means to get back in the box. And I really remember when that came out in July 1st of 2016, because I was returning back from a search and I remember pulling over on my drive back home and reading that and really thinking about that and what that meant. And that was, shortly after I had, kind of started having my epiphany about, that if all the information is in the poem, then the information to find the correct, where warm water is hauled or whatever should be, wholly encapsulated within the poem. And that was really the kind of evolution of me turning into, what I claim as a poem purist, and believing that, truly having the faith and belief that all the information I needed was wholly contained within the 166 words. And that to me meant, getting back in the box. Was that box, just the book and the poem, and even more so just the poem? I think he said, great research material is the book and maps and Google Earth. And that should be kind of the bare minimum required information, the book, which does contain the poem. So last night, going in the illustration was still in that spirit of that, because it is within the book. I just think, that I like, me personally, I try and block out all the noise, what I think is noise. And I think even the book, in my opinion, can be a lot of that noise. It can lead you down a lot of rabbit holes. It doesn't mean that it can't help you. Again, like he said, there's subtle hints or subtle clues sprinkled in the stories. And he has said, a clue will point you towards the treasure and the hint will just help you with the clues. And, I personally believe that, with those 28,000 words in the book, it's so hard to isolate, what, those subtle clues are within the book without allowing your personal biases, to make you believe that what you're seeing there is actually a subtle hint. It doesn't mean, you're not right. It just means that it's your subjectivity. It's your personal biases that make you think that this one little, possible illustration or this, quote unquote aberration within the book actually is one. It doesn't mean you're wrong. It just, if you build your whole foundation of your solve based upon a subtle hint, you might have cracks in your foundation, in my opinion. Doesn't mean you're going to be wrong. Again, I feel that, you know, as a poem purist, if I'm building my foundation upon the ugly rocks, you know, the safe upon the ugly rocks that are what I'm going to mess up Malay's quote here. I can't remember what it is. Maybe somebody can quote me on it, but safe upon the solid rock, the ugly houses stand. Come and see my shining palace built upon the sand. I think is a quote. So for me, you know, the ugly house, the non-sexy solve, or whatever you want to call it, is really based upon, you know, just the words in the poem. And if you can extrapolate with the, you know, the least amount of subjectivity, you know, a correct starting point just out of the words in the poem, then you will have a very strong foundation of your solve. Doesn't mean I'm right, or any other poem purist or poem focused or whatever you want to call it is going to be right. It just means that you have mitigated potentially as much confirmation bias as you can, because you're trying to remain objective by sticking with just the evidence, which is the 9 clues in the poem. So I'm just going to go through the chat room here. I know we're getting a lot of chat going on, and that's good. I mean, you guys always do a good job of talking amongst each other. Davio says, Sean, I sent an email to David that will blow your mind. Davio, I did see that email. He did send it to me with that video that you forwarded. I'm very curious if I've got this right. Are you from California? Are you from the Bay Area? Because I personally was born and raised in Northern California, around the Healdsburg, Santa Rosa, Petaluma area. I love Healdsburg. Is one of my favorite towns. I grew my wonder years from when I was like 8 to 16 there. I love that town. I don't know if that's where you're from. I was born in San Francisco and raised in Northern California. So if I'm getting you and you are the person that David was sending that to me, it's a very cool video. I think it's something you obviously should share in the forums, because that was pretty awesome, brother. I really liked it. And you're right. I've seen, I spent a lot of time up in Yosemite. I've seen a lot of some of those original climbers and base jumpers. To be honest with you, I saw a lot of those original base jumpers in the 70s and 80s that were out there doing a lot of that stuff when I was growing up as a kid. Not something I ever personally wanted to do, but I also grew up in a town in my, my senior or my, sophomore through senior year of high school up in Sonora, California area. So we were really close to Yosemite. I spent a lot of summers, hiking and doing things up there, but not the rock climbing and base jumping type stuff, but definitely cool. California is a beautiful state. I've just moved away from there. Frank McQueen here again. Frank, I like your last name, McQueen. That's cool. Any relation? I don't know, but Sean, what I found in some of the pictures are the numbers 642. Well, if you divide the year of Forrest's parents were married 1920, comes out 642. What do you think? There's a lot of people that like numbers. That's not something that I'm really into. And if I'm going to focus a lot of my attention, it's kind of on the words and punctuation stuff. But there's definitely a lot of interesting stuff. There's a gentleman by the name of O who does a lot of stuff about the numbers 109 and 43. He's got some interesting stuff. I personally don't subscribe to that. It doesn't mean it's wrong. There could be something to that. But I'm not really a big numbers guy, but I'm not going to say that you're wrong, because no one's found the treasure chest yet. And that's one thing I've always tried, iterating to people. I get a lot of people that tell me I'm wrong because I'm a poem purist and, can't prove it. I can't prove I'm right. And just as anybody can't prove or that I am wrong or I'm not right. I think it's it just causes arguments. People just get their feelings hurt, or they get too sensitive. There's a lot of, infighting on certain things. Davio, Sean, the keyword important. There is one. Sure. I think there's keywords in every line of that poem. I think every word is key. I think every word in that poem is important. I think that Forrest Fennis said, you oversimplify the clues. There are very few words in the poem that are not useful in finding the treasure. So I don't think you can ignore any of the words and any of the nouns or anything in that poem. Sledneck, funny Sean, my mission today is to investigate an actual box. Okay. I don't know what you're saying, but right on. Let's see. Davio, what site? Smarter what? Let's see. Frank McKean, could the key word be brave? He only about being scared once when he's a dream about going to Gardner's Island after kid. Yeah, and one thing I like Frank McQueen about that word brave is it's kind of synonymous with guts. And when you go back to the Surviving Myself chapter in The Thrill of the Chase, you know, he talks about getting revenge on his father for you know, giving him lickings, and he would jump out of his window and go down to the cemetery, which was a block north of his house. And he said it took guts to go in there at night when it was dark with no moon. And it reminds me of something that Sasha was hitting on last night in the illustrations, that there's only 4 illustrations in that, you know, in the, or 4 illustrations in the book that do have nighttime scenes. And there was a lot of discussion back and forth on that, you know, with Jeremy and David and Sasha about, you know, when or who added the nighttime scenes and stuff. But in the illustrations, you only have 4 scenes. You have Surviving Myself with him in the graveyard. You have Gypsy Magic, you know, with the wagons and him being underneath it and the girls dancing around. You have Stout-Hearted Men when he was at Texas A&M and they're sitting around the fire. And then you have the epilogue. And all 4 of those are nighttime scenes. But, you know, and Sasha kind of went into a little bit of her discussion on that. But one thing I had pointed out is that each one of those stories, minus the epilogue, in that story, he does talk about it was at nighttime. So it's not something that Allan Polt would have, you know, been against putting in the illustrations, but it may have been something, and there was a lot of talk back and forth on were the nighttime scenes and the stars and all that something that Forrest had done with a Sharpie or what now. And that's just conjecture. We don't know. There was a lot of discussion on that last night. Not something I personally subscribe to, because I believe that each one of the stories does, you know, depict that it was at night, you know, so it wasn't, you know, any kind of, you know, to me, a big revelation. But again, that epilogue, it was very strange because it doesn't fit the story, in my opinion. So, yeah, I think to me that word brave, Frank, is really kind of synonymous with the word gut, you know. And if it's no place for the meek, is that a place that we must be brave? You know, I don't know. You know, it's something to think about. People talking amongst themselves. There's one, Ben Downing. I hope everyone you know was safe in the recent fires there. Yeah, there was quite a few fires. One that was really close to us here. Ben was the one. And Ben, aren't you from? I think you had said you're from Buena Vista, so there was some fires up near your area too, up there in La Vita. I think La Vita Pass, wasn't it? I think. And I think that's in your neck of the woods, if my geography is right. But yeah, I don't think we had any loss of life or any major property damage on the ones that were up in Durango. The firefighters up here and all the volunteer firefighters that came in from out of state did an amazing job up here. And then we were blessed with some rains here in the last few weeks that definitely helped out as well. So we're very lucky that it's unfortunate. You know, I do a lot of work up in that area, and I drive up there and all along 550. Just outside of Durango, going north up towards Silverton, there is a lot of you know, a lot of the forest on the western side of the slope there has been, you know, burned up. So it's going to take years and years. And I've ridden that train with my kids and stuff up there. So the scenery is definitely going to change for those that are riding the train up there. David, I see. Yeah, you live in Cali. Are you Northern California? Are you there in you know, San Francisco Bay Area or San Rafael? Oh man, that's awesome. I spent my my sophomore year, half of my sophomore year there. I went to San Rafael High School. My grandmother lived in Sun Valley, which is on the you know, the western side of town up there. She had a little house on 226 Alpine Street. I love that place. I remember, God, it was a little place and a little quarter-mile away. It was an awesome park there. But yeah, San Rafael is a really cool place, man. I haven't been there in years just because I've moved away and from California after getting out of the military back in 2003. So I really haven't been back much. I lost my father in 2013, and that was really the last time I was in California. But that's cool, man. We got a lot of common. I remember, you know, riding 10 speeds and stuff on Mount Tamalpais, and there was a lot of Gary Fisher, and those guys were, you know, they were all like in their 30s when I was a teenager, but there was some pretty cool people up in that area that I got to meet. That there's some cool area, man. I love San Rafael, and I love the whole coast out there. I moved away because that's a long story, something I can get into some other time. H. Purd, in the marbles drawing, did anyone see the 13 and 2 Omegas? Omegas almost the counterfeit coins. I blew it up last eve looking for Smiley, and my imagination took me to Omega instead. Yeah, I don't know if a lot of people know. I think it's on page 33 of the drawing there. One of the marbles is actually a smiley face. I'm sure a lot of people know that by now, but you know, we were talking about that last night, and I know there's been a lot of talk on the forums, probably going back a few years, about that smiling face and what that means. And we don't know if that's something that Allan Polt put in there himself or Forrest Finn did after post-production, but it's definitely interesting. You know, and Forrest Finn does say a lot, you know, if you wear a smile to the treasure, you will wear a grin going home. You know, sometimes when I get to the end of this sentence, I just have to smile. You know, again, it's all subjective and conjecture, but it's just definitely interesting. And you think that, you know, this is a treasure hunt. You know, a lot of people say that there could be things hidden in the images, but it's not something I personally subscribe to, because it could just lead you down. Then you're looking at a creek or Smile Mountain, and you just get lost in all kinds of stuff, in my opinion. But yeah, there was some talk about some of that stuff last night, and I tell you, I really personally brought Jeremy Parnell on there because I know Jeremy's background. I know he's put a lot of work on the images. He has a lot of, he personally works in that right now and what he does, but he's put a lot of work into, understanding this kind of stuff and dealing with illustrators and things. So he was definitely instrumental in having a successful show last night. But again, I'm just unfortunate we've had all the issues with it. Sledneck, Sean, you were saying get back in the box. Me personally, I feel like I am in the box. Again, I try and tailor the show to be, somewhat, good for the audience. And I really thought that the illustrations would have been something that a lot of the audience was interested in. We had great numbers last night. The numbers were great. They started to fall off just because I think we got really long-winded, in the discussion. I think people were just wanting us to get to the point. And I completely understand that. Again, I'm not overly controlling. I just like to let the flow go and let people, take the conversation where it went. And there was a lot of chat last night. I do a horrible job of watching the chat room. I have to admit that I just get so involved in the conversation that I ignore what's going on. And I don't want to just have somebody that's a production person like, Toby does. But I tell you, Jason Dent, I mean, he does a really good job of, paying attention to that. So I got to give some kudos to him. Keyword could be 7. Here's one from Ben Downey again. I live in Colorado Springs, but there was one nearish Buena Vista. I was also referring to the large fire around the Santa Rosa last year. Okay. Yeah, I did. I'm not familiar. Oh, you're talking about the Santa Rosa fire in California. Yeah, I've got, and Davio will know what this is. I've got some family in Kenwood, California, and I also have a sister, in Rohnert Park. So they, are all in that area. They weren't affected by it. They were affected by the smoke, and they took a little vacation to get out of there. But I do have some family that has, a place there in Kenwood, California, about 15 acres. That's beautiful, beautiful up there. And it's amazing, like the property value up there. I think, they had it appraised not too long ago in like 4.5 million or something. I remember when my uncle, I was out there helping him build the house when I was like 5 years old. And, it's not even a big place, but like the 15 acres and where it's at is just crazy. The property value, it's right there. I mean, near Napa Valley, if anybody knows where that area is, very close. Going through the chat room here. Sean Penn. No, I never met Sean Penn, Davio. I like him as an actor. I may not agree with all his politics, but that's cool. Is that Spellberg or Spielberg? Yeah. But yeah, I knew Gary Fisher. I say I knew him. I kind of been around him and rode bikes around him and stuff. But we were, he was like 30 years old and this great athlete. And we're like, 14, 15 years old. We were just a bunch of kids chasing him around because we thought he was cool, that's been 30 years. I'm aging myself now. Edward Owen, Sean, what was the talk on the clue, page 99? What someone asked for us, that collective works and thoughts. We really didn't get into page 99 too much. I was saying last night that could be a completely different show because, according to Forrest's own admission, that wasn't an illustration that Allan Polt had done. That illustration was one that he had said was like a war correspondent friend or something that had drawn that for him. And we can have a completely different discussion on that. But, I did give some hat tips last night to people that were, that have really driven the illustration discussions. And one of those people that really drives a discussion about page 99 is Diggin' Gypsy, and she's done a lot of work on that. I think Cynthia Meacham is also, and Mindy Fossey as well, have done a lot of research and looking at that. And there's a lot of interesting stuff. Again, I think Jeremy last night was talking about a word, and I was laughing about it because I cannot pronounce the word he was talking about it. But David, has a lot of experience in paranormal, and what they call it is matrixing. It's like when our own eyes see things and we interpret them as, or our mind and our eyes trying to interpret what we're seeing. It's kind of like I think it was Scrapbook 79 when Forrest was looking in his shower and he was showing all the different images he's seen. And we're looking at that going, what the heck are you talking about, Forrest? That doesn't look like this to us, but to him, in his mind's eye, he looks at that and he interprets that. So it's kind of like called matrixing. There was another word for it that Jeremy used last night, and I was laughing at it, calling it like pedophilia or something, but I know the word is not that. I just couldn't pronounce it or remember what it was. But it's kind of, it's kind of like what we do, with images, that we see what we want to see in something. And it's almost like we do the same thing with words. We interpret words, and there's different meanings for words and synonyms of words. And we go down this synonym rabbit hole or antonym rabbit hole, and we try and find things that correlate with, what we believe the poem is trying to tell us. Me personally, I delve in a lot in grammar, and I see that, words, the words that surround other words can give you the context of what the word is. And sometimes you're not guessing at all what the word is if you can really delve down in the grammar and understand what he's telling you. That's my personal belief. It doesn't make it right, but yeah, I kind of went down a little rabbit hole on that one, didn't I? I get long-winded, guys. I know I get on my soapbox and I have a hard time getting off of it. Yeah, here's something from Unknown Searcher. Remember, Forrest thought of everything. He knew people were going to focus on the drawings. He planned it that way. Yeah, it's quite possible. I mean, he said that he doesn't intentionally do any subterfuge, or, the poem is straightforward. I like to believe the guy because I think it's us searchers who maybe overcomplicate this thing. We're all different. We all look at things differently, whether it is images, whether it's words, whatever. I think it's us, not necessarily Forrest Fenn didn't. Personally, I don't think Forrest Fenn meant for this to be overcomplicated. I think it's us that do it because we interpret things completely different. No two people will interpret a painting the same or words the same. It's just how it is. Davio, Sean, you're doing great. Thanks, man. Stay focused. This is the hardest part. Yeah, these, doing these videos is, last night it was like herding cats. We had 5 people in the chat room to start off with. And then some of you may not know that, Jason Dent showed up with Sasha. They are now an item and a couple, and a great looking couple. But then they showed up. So we had like 6 people in the chat room or in the panel last night, and it's very hard to, when you got 6 different, very, strong personalities trying to keep everybody, going. And a lot of times I just like to sit back and let it roll and have fun with it. I think we need to lasso it in just a little bit, but it was a lot of fun last night. And unfortunately, it just, again, like the video, I don't know what happened, but Mary Green, at TFS. Sean, the word is pareidolia. Is that it? Am I pronouncing that right? How hard this? I got to look it up where it actually phonetically puts it out there. Is a type of, you got 2 big words in there, like 4-syllable words, Mary. I'm horrible at that. But yeah, I think you're right. That's the word, pareidolia. If Jeremy was here, he'd probably definitely correct us all. But yeah, I think that's when you see things, or like matrixing, that your mind interprets what you're seeing as something. And I think that happens a lot, and looking at, the illustrations and things like that. Even I remember when I was a kid, we had the old popcorn ceilings on our ceiling. And, as a kid looking up, and I'd look at those and I could imagine different things in my mind, but that was just, they weren't there. It was just my imagination that was interpreting those things. So thanks for bringing that word up, Mary. I appreciate it. And I can't pronounce it. Unknown Searcher, everyone is looking for evidence primarily. Yeah, I mean, we all are. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. And, like Forrest Fenn has said, look at the big picture. There are no shortcuts. I think a lot of us, me personally, I think a lot of us are trying to find shortcuts. And to try and circumvent the system, to short circuit it, and we get overly focused on trying to find the subtle hints within the story, and why we know they are there because the architect tells us they are there. I just think that we allow our own biases to make us believe what we are reading is a subtle hint. And what I mean by bias is my background is military and sales. So, in the military, I was an analyst, and I tend to overanalyze things at sometimes, and I had to check my own self because I was allowing my biases from a previous life in the military to affect how I was interpreting this thing. And I thought, oh, I'm specially tailored to figure this thing out because I had this specialized military training. Well, that specialized military training doesn't help me at all in this. And I think a lot of our own personal backgrounds in this coming into this may not specially tailor any of us. It's something that, like you said, the average redneck, with 12 kids. And if it's an average person, what is the one thing that each and every one of us, including in this chat room tonight or today, have in common? And that is the English language. And to me, that is the common bond that all of us have. And that is the one thing that, that's what I base my, my interpretation trying to solve this thing is the grammar and punctuation within the poem. So again, getting on my soapbox, so I'll shut up. Going through here. You guys are just chatting amongst yourself. Yeah, Ben Downing, knowing about head pressure, foot pounds. Yeah, we know about that one. Scrapbook 78 or something, I think it was. Yeah, would that also exclude the illustrations or hidden information? Yeah, I think possibly. Again, like this current, statement that K-Pro said, is that, wow, it's fun to talk about the illustrations. Excuse me. I think that there's something key that we're missing. And what is that key thing that we're missing that Forrest is alluding to, that he's talking about to get back in the box? I think it is, again, it goes back to that, try to simplify if you can. And what does Forrest really mean by that? Again, I've always said that I think we've got way too much noise. There's just too much information out there. We have 188 scrapbooks. We have, 4 or 5 different forums out there with hundreds of thousands of bits of information. I like to think are subjective information because it's all our opinions. And then we have these weekly words from Forrest. We have random special words. We have all these interviews. We have 3 books from Forrest. There's just so much information out there, and it just overwhelms you. And to me, that to simplify is just go back to the basics. Go back to the book, go back to the poem, and just focus on those things. And even for me, I even narrow it down even more to just a poem. And there's a lot of people that think that I'm hamstringing myself, and maybe I am. Maybe I am completely hamstringing myself, but that's something that I'll have to own, and I'll own that, I'll own it like a badge of honor, because I think that it's the bare minimum of information that I think that we need. Sure. Can everything else outside of it be helpful? Yeah, but it just may be too much information that clouds the system, force for the trees, so to speak. Cheers. So I'm going to talk with, the guys, David, Decall and Sasha and Jeremy again, and maybe see if we can redo the illustration discussion, because I think there was a lot of good information. But what I'll try and do is I'll really try and, focus that discussion a little bit more and keep everybody on point. There was some great, points that were brought up by everybody in there, but we were, I think we were just kind of going down some deep rabbit holes and going on some stuff that I think we could have been a lot more focused. So if we do another video on this, I'll try and keep that, a little bit more focused. And something that I think I can do a better job of with the channel is really trying to stick to a time frame, because again, we do some of the shows late at night, and there's a lot of people on the East Coast that obviously have to work the next day and really want to be partaking in the chat and stuff. So I think I could do a lot better job of trying to keep the room a little bit more focused. I don't think I'm as controlling as some other moderators and stuff in the forums, and I like to just let it free flow. Again, I try and say the show is non-PC and all that, and I want to keep that going. But I think I can do a better job of kind of controlling the flow and keeping people on point. So that's something I know I need to work on. And yeah, Ben Downey, I think we're drowning in information while starving for knowledge. Yep. There's just, we've got what, 4 forums out there that are pretty well known, and there's a lot of information in those, and it's just too much information. You get a new searcher, it comes in here, and man, they jump into this thing and they're just trying to chew up and swallow as much information as they can. And I don't blame them. I mean, it's kind of the same thing I did, but then you get overwhelmed, and you start thinking, oh my God, I'm behind this thing. How in the heck am I going to catch up to these people who have been doing this for 7-8 years, And then you just start latching on to what I call false consensus ideas on what the poem means or what this is, without, just blocking all that out and thinking for yourself. I said it in one of my videos that, I don't like providing answers, because I think we're all in this society now where we can just, get on the internet and Google something and we look up the first result, and that's what we think is the answer. We think that one answer, without ever, trying to go out there and balance it with three or four other ideas to try and get an idea what the truth is. Again, I said, in a former life, I was an analyst, but as an analyst, I could not take one source of information, an intelligence discipline like human intelligence or signals intelligence. I couldn't take that one discipline and say, okay, that's fact. We're going to send our guys to this based on that one piece of information. I would be derelict in my duty. I'd be sending people into a hot zone that I don't have all the information on. So it was very pertinent that I would, check that one source of information with 2 or 3 other sources of information to find out kind of what the truth is. So I have a lot better idea. And that's the same in this. I think we just look for answers and then we go with the first answer without paying attention to other ones. So I think it's good to balance that information. Our media, I mean, God, I could get on a soapbox and harp on our media these days. If you listen to Fox News, you're just going to get one side of it. If you listen to CNN, you're just going to get one side of it. Where the heck is the balance in the middle? You got to listen to both of them and then say you're both freaking crazy and find the middle. There's 3 sides to a coin. There's the front, there's the back, and there's the edge. There's 3 sides to every story: her side, his side, and somewhere in the middle is the truth. So I think it's, the same with trying to, figure out information. Just don't take one person's answer as the truth, mine or anybody else's. Do your own research. So I try not to talk about, my answers to the clues, because I just don't want to add more noise to the system. I just want people to think. I want people to think for themselves. And I think that that's important, that if you could block out a lot of this noise and just think for yourselves, you'll be better off. I mean, heck, turn my damn YouTube channel off if you want. I mean, I could be more noise as well. But Ben Downing, yep, I've been probably spent more time watching YouTube videos about the poem than actually thinking about the poem, right? Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of driving in my job. I mean, I'll probably put 400 miles, on a day most days, just because I'm such a rural area and I've got to travel a lot to different locations for what I do. And I'll just turn the radio off, and just think and just, go through the poem and the words and my solve and think about, okay, what could I be doing wrong here or whatever. I mean, it's just constant, doing that and just shutting it out. Paul looks like you said something. Flip side, just tell them where the chest is. Yeah, if I knew where the chest is, guys, I probably still wouldn't tell you. Again, David and I have gone back and forth a lot on this, about if we were to find it, what we would really do. And I think, most people are going to want to know, one, where was it, what was the solve, and who found it. Those are the 3 things I think most people are going to, want to know. And I know Sasha, has a very, is very opinionated on her not revealing that she found it or that it was even found. And that's her prerogative. If you find it or she finds it, whatever, whoever finds it, that's their choice to do that. I just feel, that we, or if we as a community owe a moral obligation to the rest of us, that of not to having people out there. I don't want to see another Randy. I don't want to see another Paris. I don't want to see another Eric, and I'm forgetting the other gentleman's name from Yellowstone that perished, but I don't want to see anybody get hurt. I don't want to see anybody lose a father. I don't want to see anybody lose a son, a mother, or anything. So, I mean, if I had found it and I hadn't said anything, that's on me. If we lose or we hurt somebody else. So, me personally, I think it's very important that that it is known. And whether you want to tell that to Forrest or you want to find another way to tell that to remain anonymous, completely anonymous. And I think that there has been a lot of discussion about, well, even if Forrest says it has been found, but the person doesn't want to reveal themselves, then a lot of people are like, oh, then Forrest, got it himself and just said that, So, and I can kind of understand where people are coming from in that. So I think, me personally, you don't necessarily have to give the proof to Forrest, because if you provide that, irrefutable proof to the community through anonymous means somehow, then everybody will know. And Forrest will have, if he's still with us, Forrest will have no recourse but to say, yeah, it's been found. That is irrefutable proof, because that is something that only the finder would know, or would have in his possession, that he could provide that image of. So I think that's something a lot of people aren't thinking about in that lines, but it's something that David and I put a lot of thought into. But David and I definitely agree that if we were to find it, there's absolutely, without a doubt, within a couple of days, that proof would be out there as quickly as possible. So I'm just going through the chat room again here, guys. We got 40 plus people in there. That's awesome. Hardly any notice. That's good. From Mike Loggy. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. The flip side, what I am doing is letting my wife read the book and poem. She knows no other info. That's cool. That's a good idea. I wish I'd get my wife to. She sometimes will go back and watch my videos. She might be watching it right now. And she does provide a lot of, feedback on certain things that are going on in the community. But she's she's a mom. She's raising, our kids and working 2 jobs and doing a lot. And don't tell her, but if she ever finds out how much better she is than me, I'm in a lot of trouble. But yeah, that's a cool idea, Mike. Let her and keep her, and that's kind of, David and I have a unique partnership, and where he's not a poem purist. He understands where I'm coming from, but he looks at a lot of. He just got his book here a couple of weeks ago, so a lot of this discussion was driven by David and Decall, because I don't put as much emphasis on the illustrations, but they do, and they see interesting things in them. So that's why we went with that discussion. But that's a cool idea, Mike. I like what you're doing there. Here's one from GL Cannon. I mailed my copy of The Thrill of Chase to my brother for a different take, kind of like Fox News as Juan Williams and Shepard Smith. Not that my brother is liberal. Yeah, I think that's cool. What was it, that one guy who said he's a poker player and he got 10 copies and he sent them to these guys in prison? What do these guys in prison got better to do? I thought that was kind of funny, kind of cool. And guys, I'm going to try and keep this another 13 minutes or so. Hey, David, there you are. Sneaking in the room while I'm away. Afternoon, Sean. What's going on, brother? Well, that kind of gets to the end of the chat there. So just a couple things I want to address before I forget to address them. I am going on vacation starting tomorrow. I will not be doing a weekend update tonight. We're doing some last minute preparation. I want to make sure I get some good rest, so we do have a long drive. So I won't be doing a weekend update tonight. There will not be a after party this week. And depending on how I should be back Friday from vacation, next Friday, the 27th.